Last week I started my review of QPR's 23-24 first team squad, giving my views on which goalkeepers and defenders Martí Cifuentes should keep, sell, release and loan out of the club this summer. If you missed that, you can check that out up here. And in today's video, the second part of that review, I'm going to be taking a look at our midfielders and forwards and deciding the same thing. Just like last time, I put a poll out for each player asking QPR fans for their views on which midfielders and forwards we should keep, sell, release and loan. So I'll be using those answers again to compare with my own views. Like last time, I won't be putting forward any suggestions for replacements in this video, but if that's something that you'd like to see in future, then do let me know. And make sure to hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoy this one. Right, so if you saw the first part of my squad review, that should give you a bit of a flavour of where my head's at when it comes to our players. Personally, I don't think that we have that many sellable assets in this squad, and because such an overhaul is needed with a minimum of 10 players out of contract this summer, I think where we can generate budget for Christian Nauri and Martí Cifuentes, we absolutely should. And like I said last time, even though the turnaround under Martí was brilliant, this is a squad that was in a relegation battle for the majority of the season, so it's going to need tearing up and improving if we want to level up next season. Let's get back into it, starting with our midfielders. First up, we have Jack Yellowcard Colback, who featured 28 times for QPR this season, picking up 3 goals and an assist. His 13 yellow cards and 1 red made up 15% of Rangers bookings last season. Some of those bookings were so needless, but as you'd hope with that record, he did add a considerable amount of bite into a midfield that has been incredibly soft over the past 2 to 3 seasons. He reads the game well, he breaks up play, and he's pretty good at going forward too, hence the 4 attacking returns, which is a very welcome addition for a QPR midfielder. He did have some minor injury niggles in the first half of the season, though that's to be expected with a 34-year-old player, and to be honest, I actually forget he's that age when he plays. Personally, I'm quite happy to see Colback stay for his second year of his deal. He paired really well with Hayden when he arrived in January, and he's played well with Field as well. So like 91.1% of the poll, I'm going with keep. Up next, it's Chrissy Willock, whose contract expires at the end of June. Once upon a time, Willock, alongside maybe only Chair, looks like he could be our next Abere Eze type sale. That was until injury struck at the end of the 21-22 season, a campaign in which he'd posted a career best 18 attacking returns in 35 league games, and ended as Supporters Player of the Year. Even when he returned from injury at the start of the following season under Michael Beale, it looked like that player was still there, with 6 goals in his first 9 appearances in 22-23. But then of course Beale would jump ship, re-injury occurred, and Gareth Ainsworth didn't much like the look of him when he returned to the side. At the start of last season, it didn't look like that relationship had improved very much over the summer when Ainsworth sent him on for the final minute of our 4-0 annihilation of Vicarage Road on the opening day of the season. And to be honest, at this point, with just 9 months left on his contract, I think this was the sliding doors moment on Willock's future. If he'd been loving his football at this point in time, he may have considered putting pen to paper on a new deal. Because lo and behold, all it would take was a possession-based, attacking-minded manager for him to start enjoying his football again. Within 3 matches of playing him, Martí would get him on the score sheet again. He scored 3 in 3 and picked up an assist against Stoke, Preston and Hull. His returns did diminish over the course of the season. He ended with 4 goals and 4 assists. But there were many QPR goals where he was the pass before the pass. Simply put, Martí made him dangerous again, and importantly, we kept him fit for the majority of the season. What a shame then that a significant portion of his contract was spent dwelling in the depths of an anti-football system at probably the most crucial stage of negotiating a new contract, and that he's going to walk away without us making a penny on him. I know many are still hopeful that he might stay because he's enjoying life under Martí, but I just don't see it, unfortunately. He's ran his contract down, he's ready for that big signing on fee, and I think you could see him upping the efforts a little bit to put him in the eyes of potential suitors in the last few games. And for counterbalance, you can still say that his attacking returns were scattered this season, particularly in that vital final run-in. He still didn't reach the heights of that 21-22 season, and there's a very good chance that he won't again in his career. He could re-injure, he is supposedly on pretty decent wages, and those wages could be utilised for a more consistent attacking player. But whichever way you look at it, somebody is going to be picking up a good attacking player this summer on a free, albeit by paying a hefty signing on fee. So unfortunately, as much as I'd like him to stay, I'm going to go with release on this one. Unlike 70.5% of the poll who opted to keep him. 25-year-old Sam the Shield Field signed a new contract in March, just 2 days after scoring a brace against former side West Brom at Loftus Road. And that probably tells you all you need to know about him this season. There is no denying how good Sam is as a defensive player, but before 23-24, doing anything remotely attacking minded was a struggle for him. And so he is an excellent case study of Cifuentes' individual player development this season. He's sharpened the best aspects of Sam's game, his reading of matches, his positioning, his ability to break up play. And he's also buffed up the poorest, namely his prior inability to play a forward pass and his stark lack of goals for a central midfielder, something that many QPR midfielders have been guilty of in the previous few years. Having not scored at all since Burnley away last season, Field ended the season with 4 goals to his name, all of which came in the final 10 matches of the season. And there were countless moments where he got us out the shit at the other end too, with goal line clearances and last ditch tackles. He's been an incredibly important player all over the pitch, and I cannot wait to see how he develops again under Cifuentes next season. The fact that he signed a new deal in March speaks volumes too. He could have waited to see what league we're in, but instead he committed his future before the summer arrived. That's the type of player that you want at QPR. 97.5% of you said keep, as we should, and if someone does happen to be interested this summer, we will be in a strong negotiating position. Isaac Hayden, in my opinion, was our most pivotal player this season. He added much needed Premier League experience to the squad. He reads the game excellently, he breaks up play all over the pitch, and most crucially, he resolved our complete inability to play out from the back before his arrival, dropping deep, turning on the ball and distributing it further up the pitch. There were some concerns over his injury history when he arrived. He did, after all, miss 2/3 of his loan spell with Norwich last season, so the fact that he remained available for the majority of his stay is a real positive. He did start to feature a little bit less over the last few games, which I guess on one hand is a positive if he doesn't return after the summer, but if we can't sign him permanently, we are absolutely going to have to replace him with a player of a similar kind. He has 2 years left on his deal at Newcastle on a reported 50 grand a week, so doing a deal with them directly isn't going to be possible. But he has alluded a couple of times in post-match interviews to Newcastle potentially ripping up his contract and him being a free agent. The fact that he spent the first half of the season on loan at Standard Liège does suggest that there aren't many clubs that are going to be willing to pay Newcastle a transfer fee, though his form for us may have reignited some attention from other clubs in the Championship. My only personal worry about making him permanent is if we find ourselves in a similar situation to Austin and Johansson, where their best football for us was on loan, and once they were permanent they struggled for fitness. Hayden is only 29, so I'd like to think that that wouldn't be the case, but any deal that we do make would have to be appropriate given he has had significant knee injuries in the last few years. Like I say though, a vital signing for us, and I'd be very happy to keep him. Poll was a little bit more divided, with 60.2% saying keep and 39.8% saying release. 21-year-old Joe Hodge was another pleasant January loan surprise in a window where we were told to expect no incomings. The rumour was that Gary O'Neill had lent him to us for free. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it's nice to think that it is. And life at Rangers couldn't have started any better for him, scoring the winner away at Blackburn Rovers just 7 minutes into his QPR debut off of the bench. It was a very un-QPR goal at the time, a through ball being played into a late arriving midfielder who slotted it calmly into the goalkeeper's far corner. Safe to say we were very excited by our new arrival, but unfortunately that would be his very early peak. The majority of his 7 other appearances would be limited minutes off of the bench, save for 90 minutes away at Stoke, and since Sheffield Wednesday he's been an unused sub. I don't know whether Marty didn't fancy him, or potentially whether a certain number of appearances maybe did trigger a particular fee, but it's just not quite worked out for him at QPR. There is the fact that he was being used as an attacking midfielder when his natural position is in a more deeper position, but we have been spoiled for choice in those positions, so I think it's a case of just not fitting into the side. Like 93.8% of the poll, I wouldn't go back in for him, but I wish him all the best and I think he's got a really bright future ahead of him. Taylor Richards. What is there to say really? He remains a ghost in the squad, making just 4 appearances across the season and only 17 minutes at home to Plymouth under Marty Cifuentes. There have long been rumours of some personal issues keeping him out, but that's now 2 seasons at the club and 4 QPR managers that haven't been able to introduce him into the fold. I just don't see that situation changing, unfortunately, and we're not going to get a fee for him. 50.2% of the polls said release him, and I have to agree. cut our losses and move on. 23-24 was Elias Chair's 7th year at Queen's Park Rangers and his 5th consecutive season playing in the first team. He's now made over 200 appearances for Rangers. He ended the campaign with 7 goals and 8 assists, which is 1 more goal contribution than last season, and just 2 behind his career best of 17 in 21-22. It often surprises me how polarising a player that Chair is. He did start the season off colour, managing just 2 assists in his first 15 appearances before Cifuentes arrived, but there were very few players that weren't off colour during that spell. Yes, he's often guilty of carrying the ball for too long, of not passing quick enough, of cutting in predictably from the right and very often missing the target. But there are 3 certainties for me with Chair. One is that if he'd chosen to leave the club last summer or the year before, we would be in League One. The second is that we are half the team without him in it, dropping 5 points on the 2 occasions that he didn't play for QPR this season. And the third is that this guy tries absolutely 100% every time he plays for us. Even while he was fasting, he played every game. The thing about Chair is that he likes to have players on his wavelength, playmates around him, and they enhance him. You get Willock closer to him and you get a better Chair. There's no coincidence that the majority of his goal involvements came in the second half of the season once Lucas Anderson had arrived at the club. And for a good 18 months until Marty's arrival, that just simply wasn't the case. From an attacking sense, Chair has carried this team on his back for a long time, and so I can forgive him if he became a little bit predictable or lost that creative spark. And that performance against Leeds, that's just vintage Elias Chair really. That's what he can do to teams when they don't double up on him. He's unplayable on his day. Now, of course, there is the uncertainty of whether he is going to be a free man beyond the summer. None of us quite know how that one's going to play out, but for the purpose of this debate, let's say that he is going to be free. Chair's contract runs until 2025 with an option of an additional year. I talked in part 1 about the lack of sellable assets. Jake Clark-Salter is one, Kenneth Powell is another, and Elias Chair is the third. There were talks last summer that we turned down an approach from Leeds United, and after he tore them up at Loftus Road, you have to wonder if they would come back in for him, especially if they don't go up via the playoffs. I think we'll definitely see offers for him this summer, and like Jake Clark-Salter, like Powell, I think we might have to consider taking them. It's just a scary thought from an attacking sense because Chair has been the beating heart of our attack for so long. You take him out and the dynamic of the entire team changes. But maybe we are getting to that stage where we need that kind of shift. As I said, this is still a team that was in a relegation battle for 45 out of 46 championship matches last season. It does need ripping up and starting again. The real question though is if you do sell him, do you have enough money from the sale to replace a player that's got you 46 goals and assists over 3 seasons? If the answer is yes, which I think is unlikely personally, then it's sell for me. If it's no, then he has to stay. So on that basis, I am going with keep, just like 79.8% of the poll. Dixon Bonner arrived at QPR at the start of 22-23 and made 26 appearances in all competitions over the past season. In fact, between Leicester at home and Norwich at home, he made 26 consecutive appearances. He's a player in some ways that reminds me a little bit of Luke Amos, tidy on the ball and capable of some really great passes. But also like Amos, I think he can be a touch lightweight at times. It's no coincidence that our midfield improved considerably with Hayden, Field and Colback rotating between those spaces in the middle. And Dixon Bonner's really struggled to get back into the side since. He does also seem better a little bit further up the pitch, but like Hodge, it's just been really difficult for him to fit in up there as well. He did return to the side for 81 minutes against Coventry, bagging himself an assist for Elias Chair's goal. And with his contract up this summer, that was very clearly Marty Cifuentes saying, show me what you can do. He is only 23, he's still developing, and we know how good Marty is at getting these players sharpened up. So I'd be very happy keeping him as a squad player, and I think that he does still have a bit more to offer at QPR. 68% of the poll said keep, while 32% said release. Next up we have Lucas Anderson. It's hard not to like this guy really. 1 goal and 4 assists in 16 appearances since his arrival at the end of January. He's played a pivotal role in linking up Chair and Willock on either flank, and most importantly, he has single-handedly improved our set piece delivery. I do think there have been some frustrating showings from him. There's a little bit of questionable decision making in some good goal scoring opportunities, some poorer set piece balls, but that's understandable when you've been cast into a side with as little confidence as it had in that first half of the season, coming into a new country, a new league and being thrown straight into a relegation battle. He's looked a tad sluggish at times, but that does come down to a lack of playing time before he joined QPR. And so after a good summer break and pre-season, I think the best is yet to come from him. And we saw a bit of a teaser of that with that fantastic goal against Leeds. So like 97.7% of the poll, he is an easy keep for me. We already know that Albert Adomah has said his farewells to QPR, so I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to wish him all the best. There's been some great moments for him during his stay. Watford and Stoke away spring to mind in particular, and especially in his first season at the club, it was a joy to see him skilling up players on the wing. Bit of a shame that he spent most of his playing time for QPR in that right wing back spot when he really should have been on the wing, and this season was probably one too many in the end. But I'm very glad that he got to play for us before his career is out, and I wish him all the best for the future. Right, Andre Dazelle, whose contract I believe is up this summer. Has there ever been a greater transfer swap than him going out on loan to Birmingham, freeing up the wages that allowed us to bring in those 4 players in January which have saved our season, and in turn Birmingham going down? Whoever suggested and negotiated that deal with Dazelle to go the other way needs a raise. Cifuentes has done many great things in his short time at QPR so far, but right up there is him identifying that a centre mid that has scored just 2 goals in 2.5 seasons at the club is part of the problem. He's too lightweight, he rarely looks that interested, and they're both things that the Ipswich fans said to QPR fans when he signed for us. And you only have to look at him at Birmingham to see that he's been cast out of the squad as the season ended. There's clearly no way for him back into this QPR team after how this season has played out, so like 95% of you, it's a release for me. I'm going to say this nice and early. I rate Paul Smith. He's come under flack this season for only collecting 3 goals and 1 assist. People in particular criticising his toothlessness in front of goal, as if that has been exclusive to him. But I think he adds much needed pace into this side. He's an outlet, and he does get into some great positions in the box. He's just lacking that killer touch. And I think he is also far better at supporting his fullback in defending than Chris Willock. The general consensus is that he's better off coming on as a sub against a tired defence, and that may well be the case, but I would like to raise the fact that the majority of his 10 goals for Leyton Orient last season came on the left wing, not the right. So he's clearly more comfortable coming into the box from that side, and I hope that's something that's explored in the summer. I think people often forget the context as well, that A, he came in as a free signing in the summer, and B, he actually came back and gave us a second chance after we cast him aside in the first place. Again, that's the type of player that you want at QPR, and he's clearly very proud and passionate to play for Rangers. I personally still think he has a role to play in this team, and I think he will improve next season. So I'm going with keep, just like 80.5% of the poll. And I'm going to go early with Lyndon Dykes too. It's time for him to move on. 2023-24 was his 4th successive season with QPR. He ended the season with 6 goals and an assist in the league, with 2 coming in back-to-back games against Preston and Leeds. He's been the source of much debate during his time at QPR, but the simple reality is he doesn't score enough goals no matter what the team looks like around him. And after 4 consecutive seasons, I think we now have a big enough sample to judge that on. He does always seem to pop up with a couple of goals at the end of the season to make you go, what if? But he's just not suited to the type of football that most QPR managers, Ainsworth aside, want to play. And even in Ainsworth's system, he didn't really flourish when you think that might have suited him. There's also that horrific stat that he's managed just 1 away goal in something like 937 days, a period in which we've seen 3 Prime Ministers, 2 Monarchs, and 6 Queen's Park Rangers managers. Some make the argument that he doesn't get the service, though that does seem to be the case for all of QPR's forwards, and he does have a habit of running away from the ball in the box. His best returns for QPR came when he was playing in a pair with Austin up top, but that's 3 seasons ago now, and I just can't imagine Marty playing with 2 up top next season. Personally, I'm hoping that he'll bag a couple in the Euros, he'll reignite that supposed interest from Millwall, and we can move him on for a more suitable option in this squad. 60.6% of you agreed, while 35.5% said they would prefer to keep him. Mickey Frey arrived in January, and within 2 appearances for QPR, he had himself a goal at Loftus Road against Norwich. Could he be the answer to our goal scoring problems? Unfortunately not, for now. That was as good as it got really, because from here we got 1 missed penalty against West Brom, some sluggish cameo appearances from the bench, and eventually an injury that's kept him out for the final 6 matches of the season. Part of me does wonder whether our ability to bring him to the club was based on a very short-term deal, and that a certain number of appearances might have triggered an extension to that deal. But that's purely conspiracy from me at this point, and only based on the fact that we didn't divulge the length of his contract. Either way, I don't think that he's a player that we can judge too early. He hadn't hadn't played any football at all since May 2023 before arriving at QPR, so it's really not a surprise to see that he struggled for fitness. And it's probably an unpopular opinion, but I actually did think that pressing and positionally, he did look really good in a few games. So like I say, I don't think we can judge him until he's had that proper pre-season. He's another polarising player with 50.8% saying keep, 25.8% saying sell, and 21.4% saying release. 22-year-old Charlie Kelman spent the first half of the season around the first team squad, but made very little impact in any of his appearances. That led to him being loaned out to Wigan in the second half of the season, where he mustered 3 goals and 1 assist in 14 appearances. League One does seem to be more his level, though interestingly the club did extend his contract in January. Whether that's because they see something in him or whether they're just trying to get a fee will be yet to be seen. I just personally can't see him coming into our first team. So like 67% of you, I would sell if Wigan come in with an interest in making that deal permanent. Lastly, we have Sinclair Armstrong, whose contract expires this summer, though we do have the option of an additional year. I can't remember the last time that we had a young player that so much of the fan base was desperate to see succeed. The passion is there, the energy, the pace, the power, but it's just not quite clicked yet. The 20-year-old did end the season with 4 goals and 3 assists to his name, which to be honest is actually quite good in a team that has been in a relegation battle, one that's been deprived of goals, especially considering for the final few matches his minutes were very limited. Again, I also personally have sympathy that he's been playing in a team in a relegation battle. Those conditions of course add pressure on a player to perform, which is a lot for a 20-year-old, when in reality if we were in a better place as a club, he should have been spending this season out on loan in the lower leagues, plying and learning his trade. I do still think there is a great amount of potential there, but that potential really needs honing this season. And where that happens is going to depend on what we do in the summer transfer window. We can't really afford to go into another season hoping that he's going to grab us some goals up front. To me, the best outcome is that we probably move on Dykes, bring in a couple of new first team strikers, and Armstrong goes out on loan this season. It might seem a bit of a backward way to do things after he's spent this season and last around the first team squad, but he is still only 20, so I think there is time. Send him out for half a season, get his confidence up, get a few goals under his belt, and see where we're at in January. 68.3% of you said keep, while 26.3% agreed with me and said loan. Okay, so that brings us to the end of part 2 of my squad review, so let's see where we're at. In total, I've said keep 13, sell 4, release 10, and loan out 3. So essentially 15 players would be remaining at QPR and 14 would be departing. Those outgoing players are in a real range of positions, so it does seem there is a lot of work to do to the spine of this team. But with roughly 12 players out of contract, those do seem to be the right splits. And it really does show you the scale of the changes that could be happening at QPR this summer. Like last time, I'm sure that people will disagree with many of the opinions that I've put out, so I would love to hear your own views on the squad in the comments below. As the summer goes on, I will be posting updates on transfer rumours and of course profile videos for every player that signs for QPR. But as I said last time, if you would like me to share any videos with my own views on personal transfer targets, then do let me know. I'm by no means a transfer scout, but it could be a fun thing to do. Anyway, thank you so much for watching as usual. If you've enjoyed this video, then do hit the subscribe button and I'll see you next time. Cheers!